The galaxy had seen its share of wars, but none like the one between humanity and the Vryn. For decades, these two species had clashed over territory, resources, and misunderstandings that neither side seemed willing to resolve. The battles were brutal, leaving scars on both civilizations. But now, after years of endless fighting, there was a glimmer of hope. Both sides agreed to meet for peace talks at a neutral location, an asteroid station called Epsilon 7. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of his ship, the SS Horizon, as it approached the meeting point. He was a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that always seemed to be scanning for danger. His uniform was neatly pressed, and his posture radiated authority. Ryan had spent most of his life serving in the human fleet, rising through the ranks because of his skill and determination. Yet, even with all his experience, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about this mission. Beside him stood Ambassador Laura Bennett, a woman in her late 40s, with short brown hair and a calm demeanor. She carried herself with confidence, her voice steady whenever she spoke. Laura had been chosen to lead the diplomatic efforts because of her reputation for resolving conflicts peacefully. She believed deeply in the possibility of coexistence between humans and the Vryn. While Ryan trusted her judgment, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Something about this situation felt too perfect, too convenient. As the SS Horizon neared Epsilon 7, Ryan turned to Laura. "Do you really think they'll show up?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "They have no reason not to," Laura replied, without hesitation. "Both sides want peace. We've lost enough lives already." Ryan nodded but said nothing. He glanced at the view screen, where the massive asteroid station loomed ahead. It looked ancient, its surface pockmarked with craters and scars from centuries of drifting through space. Lights flickered faintly along its edges, signaling activity inside. Despite its rough appearance, Epsilon 7 was equipped with advanced technology designed to facilitate negotiations. It was supposed to be safe, a place where weapons weren't allowed and aggression was forbidden. On the other side of the station, aboard the Vryn vessel Zinthalis, Commander Kale Vor prepared his crew for what he hoped would be a historic moment. Unlike humans, the Vryn were a species of towering insect-like creatures with shimmering exoskeletons and multifaceted eyes. Their voices clicked and hummed when they spoke, making their language sound almost musical to human ears. Kyle Vor was a seasoned leader, respected by his people for his wisdom and restraint. Like Laura, he believed peace was possible if both sides were willing to listen. But not everyone shared Kale Vor's optimism. Among his officers, whispers of doubt circulated. Some argued that trusting humans was foolish, pointing to past betrayals and broken promises. Others worried that the humans might use the peace talks as a trap. Kale Vor dismissed these concerns publicly, but privately, he wondered if his own instincts were failing him. Still, he refused to let fear dictate his actions. If there was even a small chance of ending the war, he owed it to his people to try. Back on the SS Horizon, tensions began to rise as technical issues started plaguing the ship's systems. Sensors malfunctioned intermittently, causing false alarms to blare across the bridge. Engineers scrambled to fix the problems, but each solution only seemed to create new ones. Ryan frowned as he watched his crew work. These kinds of glitches were rare, especially on a state-of-the-art vessel like the SS Horizon. He couldn't help but wonder if someone or something was deliberately interfering with their equipment. Laura noticed Ryan's growing unease and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's just nerves," she said softly. "Everyone is on edge. That's normal before something this important." "Maybe," Ryan muttered, though he didn't sound convinced. "But I don't trust coincidences." Before Laura could respond, the communications officer interrupted. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vryn ship." Ryan straightened immediately. "Put it on screen." The image of Kale Vor appeared, his chitinous face unreadable to human eyes. Behind him, members of his crew moved efficiently, their movements precise and deliberate. Kale Vor greeted them formally, his translator device converting his clicks and hums into clear English. "We are ready to begin discussions," he said. "May this mark the beginning of a new era." Laura stepped forward, smiling warmly. "Thank you, Commander." We share your hopes for a brighter future." Ryan remained silent, studying Kelvor carefully. There was sincerity in the alien commander's voice, but Ryan's instincts told him to stay cautious. Trust didn't come easily to soldiers like him, especially when so much was at stake. As the two ships docked at Epsilon 7, preparations for the peace talks continued. Delegations from both sides gathered in the station's main chamber, a vast room filled with holographic displays and comfortable seating arrangements. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Representatives exchanged polite greetings, though underlying suspicion lingered in every glance and gesture. Unbeknownst to anyone, however, a shadowy figure lurked in the background. Lieutenant Daniel Harper, a disgraced officer from another human ship, had infiltrated the station days earlier. Working under orders from Admiral Carson, a high-ranking military leader who despised the idea of peace, Daniel had planted viruses in the station's systems. His goal was simple: sabotage the negotiations and reignite the war. Carson believed that humanity needed to remain strong and united, and he saw peace as a threat to that unity. While Ryan and Laura focused on building rapport with the Vryn, Daniel worked quietly in the shadows. He manipulated sensor readings to make it appear as though the Vryn were secretly mobilizing forces nearby. False reports flooded the human delegation's data streams, sowing seeds of doubt. Even Ryan, who prided himself on remaining level-headed, found his suspicions growing stronger with each passing hour. Despite the mounting tension, Laura refused to give up. She knew that achieving peace required patience and perseverance. Every time Ryan voiced his concerns, she reminded him of the bigger picture. "If we walk away now, we'll never get another chance like this," she told him firmly. "We have to see this through no matter what." Ryan wanted to believe her, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that disaster was looming just over the horizon. Little did he know, his instincts were correct. The stage was set for betrayal, and the fragile thread of trust holding the two sides together was about to snap. For now, though, the peace talks proceeded cautiously. Both humans and Vryn took tentative steps toward understanding, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. In the quiet moments between discussions, Ryan gazed out at the stars, wondering if humanity was truly ready for peace, or if war was simply too ingrained in their nature to let go. This concludes Part 1. Let me know if you'd like me to proceed with the next part. The peace talks began with cautious optimism, but it didn't take long for cracks to appear. Laura Bennett stood at the center of the main chamber, her voice calm and steady as she outlined humanity's proposals for coexistence. Across from her, Commander Kelvor listened intently, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the soft glow of the holographic displays surrounding them. The two leaders exchanged ideas, finding common ground in areas like resource sharing and border agreements. For a moment, it seemed as though progress was possible, but then the first glitch occurred. A sudden burst of static interrupted the translation system, cutting off Kelvor mid-sentence. The room fell silent as technicians scrambled to fix the issue. When the connection was restored moments later, Kelvor repeated his statement. But the interruption had already planted seeds of doubt. Some members of the human delegation exchanged uneasy glances, while others whispered among themselves. Ryan Mitchell watched silently from the sidelines, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He didn't trust coincidences, and this felt deliberate. Laura tried to smooth things over, urging everyone to focus on the task at hand. "Technical issues happen," she said with a reassuring smile. "Let's not let them distract us from what we're here to achieve." Kelvor nodded in agreement, though his tone carried a hint of unease. "We must remain patient," he replied. "Misunderstandings can be resolved if we work together." Despite their efforts to stay composed, tensions continued to rise. More glitches followed, each one more disruptive than the last. Sensors reported phantom readings of Vryn ships approaching the station, only for the signals to vanish seconds later. Communication lines between the delegations faltered repeatedly, forcing both sides to rely on handwritten notes and gestures. It was frustrating, chaotic, and increasingly difficult to ignore. Ryan's suspicions grew stronger with every passing hour. He pulled Laura aside during a break in the discussions. "Something isn't right here," he said in a low voice. "These glitches aren't random. Someone is messing with us." Laura frowned, clearly torn between her desire to believe in the process and her growing concern. "If that's true, we need proof before we accuse anyone," she replied. "Jumping to conclusions will only make things worse." Ryan clenched his jaw but said nothing. He knew she was right, but his instincts screamed that they were being set up for failure. He decided to investigate further, ordering his crew to run diagnostics on the SS Horizon's systems and cross-check data with the station's logs. What they found only deepened the mystery. Several unauthorized access points had been detected, suggesting someone had tampered with the station's infrastructure. Meanwhile, aboard the Zinthalis, similar suspicions were brewing. Kael'Vor's officers reported anomalies in their own systems, mirroring those experienced by the humans. One of his lieutenants, a sharp-eyed warrior named Vrelkor, approached him during a private moment. "Commander, I fear the humans cannot be trusted," Vrelkor said bluntly. "Their actions reek of deception." Kael'Vor hesitated, weighing his lieutenant's words carefully. "We must not act rashly," he cautioned. "If we accuse them without evidence, we risk destroying any chance of peace." "But what if they strike first?" Vrelkor pressed. "We cannot afford to wait until it is too late." Kael'Vor understood his officer's concerns, but he refused to abandon diplomacy so quickly. Instead, he ordered increased monitoring of all communications and instructed his crew to prepare contingency plans in case negotiations collapsed. Like Ryan, he chose caution over confrontation. For now, unbeknownst to either leader, Lieutenant Daniel Harper was hard at work behind the scenes. Hidden away in a maintenance corridor deep within Epsilon 7, Daniel tapped into the station's central network using a portable terminal. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he uploaded malicious code designed to escalate tensions between the two sides. Each glitch, each false alarm, was part of his plan to ensure the peace talks failed spectacularly. Daniel wasn't acting alone. Admiral Carson, his superior, had orchestrated the entire operation from afar. A grizzled veteran of countless battles, Carson despised the idea of peace with the Vryn. To him, compromise was weakness, and weakness invited destruction. He believed humanity needed to maintain its dominance in the galaxy, even if it meant continuing the war indefinitely. By sabotaging the negotiations, Carson hoped to provoke the Vryn into retaliating, giving humanity a justification to renew hostilities on their terms. As night fell over the station, or what passed for night, in the artificial environment, Daniel monitored his handiwork with satisfaction. The fake sensor readings showing Vryn reinforcements gathering nearby were working perfectly. Human delegates had begun openly questioning the aliens' intentions, their voices tinged with anger and suspicion. On the other side, Vryn officers muttered darkly about human treachery, convinced that the glitches were part of a larger scheme to undermine them. Laura struggled to keep the discussions on track, her patience wearing thin. She called an emergency meeting with Ryan and Kael'Vor, hoping to address the growing distrust head-on. "We need transparency," she urged. "Both sides should share their findings so we can rule out misunderstandings." Ryan agreed reluctantly, though he remained skeptical. "Fine," he said. "But if this turns out to be a setup, we'll have no choice but to defend ourselves." Kael'Vor nodded, his expression unreadable. "Agreed. Let us compare data and uncover the truth." When the three gathered in a secure conference room, their teams presented their respective findings. To everyone's surprise, the anomalies matched almost exactly, proof that neither side was directly responsible for the disruptions. This revelation should have eased tensions, but instead, it left both groups feeling even more uneasy. If neither humans nor Vryn were behind the sabotage, then who was? Before they could delve deeper into the mystery, another crisis erupted. Alarms blared throughout the station as sensors detected a massive energy spike nearby. Everyone rushed to the observation deck, where view screens displayed a disturbing sight: dozens of unidentified vessels emerging from hyperspace. Their markings suggested they belonged to the United Earth Navy, but none of the ships matched any fleet currently under Ryan's command. Panic spread quickly. Members of the human delegation accused the Vryn of luring them into a trap, while Vryn officers insisted the humans had planned this ambush all along. Voices rose in anger, and tempers flared dangerously. Only Laura and Kael'Vor managed to keep their composure, though barely. "Hold your positions," Ryan barked, raising his hands to silence the chaos. We don't know what's happening yet. HFY echoed his sentiment, addressing his own people in firm tones. Stand down until we have answers, he commanded, but the situation spiraled out of control when one of the mysterious ships fired a warning shot near the Zinthalis. The blast shook the station, sending debris tumbling through space. Chaos erupted instantly. Vryn warriors drew weapons, and human soldiers raised their rifles ready to fight. Ryan and HFY shouted orders, trying desperately to prevent bloodshed, but the damage was done. Trust evaporated in an instant, replaced by fear and hostility. In the midst of the confusion, Daniel stepped forward, broadcasting a message to both sides. This attack is retaliation for Vryn aggression, he declared, his voice cold and calculating. They've been planning this for months. Humanity has no choice but to defend itself. His words ignited fury on both sides. Laura tried to reason with the crowd, pleading for calm, but her voice was drowned out by shouts and accusations. HFY looked at Ryan, his expression grim. Is this truly how your kind operates? He asked, his tone heavy with disappointment. Ryan shook, his head, his mind racing. He didn't recognize these ships or their commander, but he knew one thing for certain. Someone had betrayed them all. And unless he acted fast, the fragile hope for peace would shatter completely. This concludes Part 2. Let me know if you'd like me to proceed with the next part. The station trembled as chaos erupted, and the fragile thread of trust between humanity and the Vryn snapped completely. The mysterious ships hovered menacingly outside Epsilon 7, their weapons trained on the alien vessel Zinthalis. Inside the station, panic spread like wildfire. Human soldiers raised their rifles, forming defensive lines while Vryn warriors clicked and hissed in agitation, their claws flexing as they prepared for battle. Laura Bennett stood frozen, her face pale with shock, as she realized everything they had worked for was crumbling before her eyes. Ryan Mitchell moved quickly, barking orders to his crew. "Secure the perimeter," he shouted. "Nobody fires unless I give the command." His voice carried authority, cutting through the noise. He turned to HFY, who stood nearby, his multifaceted eyes reflecting both anger and confusion. "Commander, we need to stay calm," Ryan said firmly. "This isn't your doing, is it?" HFY hesitated but shook his head. "No," he replied. "We came here for peace, not war." Ryan believed him, though he knew belief alone wouldn't stop the violence brewing around them. He glanced at Laura, whose expression was a mix of despair and determination. She stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "Everyone, please listen," she pleaded, her voice trembling but audible. "We don't know who these ships belong to or why they're attacking. Let's not jump to conclusions." Her words fell on deaf ears. The tension was too high, the mistrust too deep. One of Ryan's officers interrupted, his tone urgent. "Captain, those ships are broadcasting a signal. It's Lieutenant Daniel Harper. He claims responsibility for this attack." Ryan's blood ran cold. He had never trusted Harper, a disgraced officer known for his reckless tactics, but he hadn't expected betrayal on this scale. "What does he want?" Ryan demanded. "He says the Vryn can't be trusted and that humanity must act now to protect itself," the officer replied grimly. Laura's heart sank. This was exactly what she had feared, a rogue element determined to sabotage peace. She turned to Ryan, her eyes pleading. "You have to stop him," she said. "If you don't, all hope is lost." Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening. He couldn't let Harper destroy everything they had fought for. Turning to HFY, he made a decision. "Commander, I'm going to get to the bottom of this," he said, "but I need your word that your people won't retaliate until we know the truth." HFY hesitated, his antennae twitching with uncertainty. His crew murmured anxiously behind him, urging him to strike back against the aggressors. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. "You have my word," he said. "But if you fail, I cannot guarantee restraint." Ryan didn't waste another moment. He gathered a small team consisting of Chief Engineer Samantha Sam Collins and 2 trusted security officers. Together, they prepared to board one of the rogue ships using a maintenance shuttle docked at the station. As they suited up, Sam approached Ryan, her face set with determination. "Sir, Are you sure about this? She asked. Those ships could tear us apart. We don't have a choice, Ryan replied. If we don't act now, there won't be anything left to save. With that, the team launched the shuttle, slipping away from Epsilon 7 under the cover of its shadow. The rogue fleet loomed ahead, their massive hulls blocking out the stars. Ryan's hands gripped the controls tightly as he navigated toward the nearest ship. His mind raced with possibilities. What would they find aboard? Who was truly pulling? The strings? As they docked, Ryan led the way, his weapon drawn but not yet fired. The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor. The interior of the ship was eerily quiet, the hum of its engines the only sound. Ryan signaled for his team to fan out, their footsteps muffled by the metallic floor. They moved cautiously, scanning every corner for signs of resistance. It wasn't. Long before they encountered their first obstacle, a locked door guarded by two armed soldiers. Ryan recognized their uniforms. They belonged to Admiral Carson's division. His suspicions hardened into certainty. Carson, a hawkish military leader, had always opposed peace with the Vryn. Now it seemed he had taken matters into his own hands. "Stand down," Ryan ordered, stepping forward. "You're violating direct orders from Central Command." The soldiers hesitated, clearly unsure how to respond. Before they could react, Sam hacked into the door's control panel, overriding the lock. The door slid open, revealing Lieutenant Daniel Harper standing inside. His face twisted into a smirk when he saw Ryan. "I wondered when you'd show up," Harper said smugly. "What are you doing here, Harper?" Ryan demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "This isn't a sanctioned operation." Harper shrugged, as if the question amused him. "Sanctioned or not, it's necessary," he replied. "Peace with the Vryn weakens us. Humanity needs enemies to stay strong." "You're insane," Sam muttered, her disgust evident. Harper ignored her, turning, his attention back to Ryan. "Admiral Carson agrees with me," he continued. "He knows the risks of letting our guard down. If we don't act now, the Vryn will crush us later." Ryan clenched his fists, resisting the urge to lash out. "You're wrong," he said, "and you're putting countless lives at risk." Harper laughed bitterly. "Sometimes sacrifices are necessary for the greater good," he said. "You'll see that soon enough." Before Ryan could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Harper smirked again, clearly expecting this development. "Looks like reinforcements are here," he said. "Good luck stopping them." Ryan realized they were running out of time. If Carson's fleet engaged the Vryn fully, there would be no turning back. He turned to Sam. "Disable their weapon systems," he ordered. "Buy us some time." Sam nodded, already pulling tools from her belt. She worked quickly, her fingers flying across the ship's internal network. Meanwhile, Ryan confronted Harper directly, pinning him against the wall. "Call off your ships," he growled. "Now." Harper sneered, but said nothing. Ryan tightened, his grip, his patience wearing thin. Just then, Sam gave a triumphant shout. "Weapons offline," she announced. "They won't be firing any shots for a while." Relief washed over Ryan, but it was short-lived. Harper's smirk returned, infuriating him further. "You think this changes anything?" Harper taunted. "Carson has already sent the orders. By the time you expose me, it'll be too late." Ryan's mind raced. He needed proof, not just of Harper's involvement, but of Carson's role in the conspiracy. Spotting a data terminal nearby, he forced Harper to unlock it. Files scrolled across the screen, revealing damning evidence of Carson's plans. Messages outlined the sabotage, detailing how Harper had manipulated sensors and communications to provoke conflict. There were even recordings of Carson himself, ranting about the dangers of peace. "We've got him," Ryan said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "Let's go." The team hurried back to the shuttle, their prize secured. As they disengaged from the rogue ship, Ryan contacted Epsilon 7, relaying the situation to Laura and Kael'vor. "We have proof of Carson's treachery," he said. "This whole attack was staged to ruin the peace talks." Kael'vor's response was immediate. "Then we must act swiftly," he said. "My crew will stand down, but only if yours does the same." Laura chimed in, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Use the evidence to convince Central Command to recall Carson's forces, she urged. We still have a chance to salvage this. Ryan agreed, knowing the next few hours would determine the fate of both species. Back aboard the SS Horizon, he transmitted the files to Central Command, demanding an emergency hearing. While they waited for a response, he kept a close eye on the rogue fleet, ready to intervene if necessary. Tensions remained high, but a fragile calm settled over Epsilon 7. For the first time since the attack, hope flickered faintly in the darkness. Ryan looked at Laura, who offered him a small, weary smile. We're not done yet, she said softly, but we're closer than we were before. Ryan nodded, his resolve stronger than ever. Betrayal had nearly destroyed them, but unity might still save them if they could hold on long enough to make it happen. This concludes Part 3. Let me know if you'd like me to proceed with the next part. The evidence Ryan Mitchell had gathered was damning, but it wasn't enough to stop the chaos entirely. Central Command received the files, their initial response cautious and skeptical. Admiral Carson, a towering figure in the military hierarchy, was not someone they could accuse lightly. His reputation as a war hero preceded him, and many believed his aggressive tactics were necessary to protect humanity. Still, the proof Ryan provided was undeniable. Recordings of Carson's voice, explicit orders for sabotage, and Harper's confession left little room for doubt. As Central Command debated their next move, Ryan stayed on high alert aboard the SS Horizon. The rogue fleet remained in position, their weapons temporarily disabled thanks to Sam's quick thinking, but time was running out. If Carson managed to regain control of his ships or convince others to support his cause, the fragile truce at Epsilon 7 would collapse completely. Ryan knew he had to act fast, even if it meant going against protocol. He turned to Laura Bennett, who stood nearby, her face pale with exhaustion, but her resolve unwavering. We need to expose Carson publicly, Ryan said. If we wait for Central Command to make a decision, it might be too late. Laura nodded, understanding the urgency. But how do we do that without making things worse? She asked. If we broadcast this information directly, it could look like an act of desperation. Or worse, an attempt to shift blame onto the Vryn. Ryan hesitated, knowing she was right. Timing and delivery were critical. They couldn't afford to appear reckless or unstable, especially when trust between humans and the Vryn was hanging by a thread. He glanced at Kyle Vor, who had joined them on the bridge. The alien commander's multifaceted eyes reflected concern, though his expression remained unreadable. What do you suggest? Ryan asked him. Kyle Vor considered the question, carefully before responding. Transparency is key, he said. Both sides must see the truth simultaneously. Only then can we prevent further escalation. Ryan agreed, though the logistics of such a plan were daunting. Together, the three devised a strategy. They would transmit the evidence to all ships involved, the rogue fleet, the Xinthalis, and Central Command, ensuring no one could deny what had happened. At the same time, Laura would address both delegations, directly, appealing for calm and cooperation. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance to defuse the situation. Back aboard the rogue ship where Lieutenant Daniel Harper was being held under guard, tensions simmered. Harper glared at Ryan, his arrogance replaced by frustration. You think this changes anything? He spat. People will still see the Vryn as a threat. Carson's vision will win out in the end. Ryan didn't respond. He didn't have the energy to argue with someone so blinded by ideology. Instead, he focused on preparing for the transmission. As the team finalized the details, Sam approached him, her face grim. Sir, I've been monitoring the rogue fleet systems, she said. They're trying to override my shutdown protocols. If they succeed, they'll regain full control of their weapons within minutes. Ryan cursed under his breath. Time was slipping away faster than he'd anticipated. Keep working on it, he ordered. Delay them as long as you can. Sam nodded and hurried back to her station, her fingers flying across the console. Meanwhile, Laura addressed the assembled delegates in the main chamber of Epsilon 7. Her voice trembled slightly, but her words carried conviction. We are here today because we want peace, she began. But forces beyond our control have sought to destroy that hope. What we are about to show you is difficult to accept, but it is the truth, and only by facing it can we move forward. The screens flickered to life, displaying the incriminating files Ryan had retrieved. Recordings played, showing Carson's cold calculation and Harper's smug justification for betrayal. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the gravity of the situation sank in. Some members of the human delegation looked horrified, while others seemed conflicted, torn between loyalty to their leaders and the moral implications of what they were witnessing. Among the Vryn, murmurs of anger gave way to cautious silence as War stepped forward to speak. "This is not the action of a united species," War said, his tone measured but firm. "It is the work of individuals driven by fear and hatred. We came here seeking understanding, not vengeance. Let us not allow their actions to define us." His words resonated deeply, even among those who had doubted the Vryn's sincerity. Slowly, the mood shifted from hostility to reflection. Laura seized the moment, urging everyone to focus on solutions rather than blame. "We have a choice to make," she said. "We can let this betrayal divide us further, or we can rise above it. Humanity and the Vryn share a galaxy. Peace is possible if we commit to it together." While the delegates absorbed the message, Ryan worked tirelessly to ensure the rogue fleet remained neutralized. Sam's efforts bought them precious time, but the enemy technicians were persistent, inching closer to restoring their systems. Knowing they couldn't hold them off indefinitely, Ryan made a bold decision. He contacted Central Command again, bypassing bureaucratic delays and speaking directly to Admiral Hargrove, a moderate leader known for his pragmatism. "Admiral, I'm transmitting the evidence now," Ryan said. "Carson's fleet is attempting to override our countermeasures. If you don't recall them immediately, this entire mission will fail." Hargrove listened intently, his voice calm but firm. "Understood, Captain," he replied. "Stand by for confirmation." Minutes later, the order came through. Carson's fleet was officially relieved of duty, its ships instructed to stand down pending investigation. Cheers erupted on the SS horizon as the news spread. For the first time since the attack, hope began to outweigh despair. On the rogue ship, Harper watched helplessly as his plans unraveled. Guards escorted him to a holding cell, his smirk finally fading. "You haven't won," he muttered to Ryan as he passed. "There will always be those who believe in strength over weakness." Ryan didn't respond. He had no interest in debating philosophy with someone so consumed by bitterness. Instead, he returned to the bridge, where Sam greeted him with a tired smile. "Weapons systems remain offline," she reported. "Looks like we did it." Ryan nodded, though he knew the battle wasn't truly over. Carson's influence ran deep, and there would be fallout from this incident. But for now, they had achieved something remarkable. They had exposed the truth and preserved the fragile possibility of peace. In the main chamber of Epsilon 7, Laura and Vor shook hands, a symbolic gesture of unity. Around them, delegates from both sides exchanged tentative smiles, the weight of betrayal giving way to cautious optimism. Ryan watched from afar, his heart swelling with pride. This was why he had dedicated his life to service, not for glory or power, but for moments like this, when hope triumphed over fear. As the SS Horizon prepared to depart Epsilon 7, Ryan gazed out at the stars, his mind filled with thoughts of what lay ahead. The road to peace would be long and difficult, fraught with challenges and setbacks, but for the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe it was worth fighting for. The aftermath of the betrayal was a tense and delicate period, but it also marked the beginning of something new. Admiral Carson's conspiracy had been exposed, his rogue fleet recalled, and Lieutenant Daniel Harper placed under arrest. Central Command issued a public statement condemning Carson's actions, emphasizing their commitment to peace negotiations with the Vryn. For many, this admission was a turning point, a recognition that humanity could not afford to let fear dictate its future. Yet, even as the immediate threat subsided, the scars of distrust lingered. Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the SS Horizon, watching as the station Epsilon 7 grew smaller in the distance. The ship's engines hummed softly, carrying them away from the site of both conflict and hope. He felt drained, physically and emotionally, but there was also a sense of quiet satisfaction. They had uncovered the truth, prevented a war, and kept the fragile thread of diplomacy intact. Still, Ryan knew this was only the first step. Peace was not something that could be achieved overnight. It required constant effort and vigilance. Beside him, Laura Bennett leaned against the railing, her arms crossed as she stared out at the stars. Her face showed signs of exhaustion, but her eyes sparkled with determination. "Do you think we've done enough?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Ryan hesitated before answering. "Enough to stop a disaster," he said. "But peace isn't just about stopping wars. It's about building trust day by day." Laura nodded slowly, her gaze thoughtful. "You're right. This is just the start. Both sides need to show they're serious about coexistence. That means compromises, sacrifices, and above all, honesty." Ryan agreed, though he couldn't help but wonder how long the goodwill would last. Humanity and the Vryn were still strangers to each other, separated by centuries of mistrust and misunderstanding. Even now, whispers of doubt persisted among some members of the human delegation, while Kael'vor's officers remained wary of further betrayals. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but Ryan believed it was a journey worth taking on. The Xanthalas, Commander Kael'vor faced similar concerns. His crew had celebrated the exposure of Carson's plot, but not everyone shared his optimism about humanity's intentions. Vrel Kor, his trusted lieutenant, approached him during a rare moment of solitude. "Commander, are you certain this peace will hold?" he asked. "Humans are unpredictable. What if another Carson rises among them?" Kael'vor considered the question carefully before responding. "There will always be those who oppose peace," he said, "but we cannot let their voices drown out the ones calling for understanding. If we turn away now, we abandon any chance of a better future." Vrel Kor bowed his head respectfully, though his antennae twitched with uncertainty. "I hope you're right," he murmured. Kael'vor placed a reassuring claw on his lieutenant's shoulder. "So do I," he admitted, "but hope is a risk worth taking." Back aboard the SS Horizon, preparations continued for the next phase of negotiations. Central Command had authorized a joint task force between humans and the Vryn, tasked with patrolling shared borders and addressing conflicts peacefully. The initiative was unprecedented, a bold step toward cooperation that neither side had attempted before. Ryan was chosen to lead the human contingent, working directly alongside Kael'vor. While the idea of such close collaboration made some uneasy, Ryan saw it as an opportunity to build bridges rather than walls. As the days passed, small victories began to emerge. Communication channels improved, allowing for clearer exchanges between species. Engineers from both sides collaborated on repairing damage caused by the rogue fleet's attack, sharing knowledge and techniques that benefited everyone. Even cultural exchanges took place, albeit cautiously. Human delegates learned about Vryn traditions, while the aliens marveled at Earth's history and art. These moments of connection, however brief, reminded everyone of what was possible when fear gave way to curiosity. Laura played a crucial role in fostering these connections, her diplomatic skills shining brighter than ever. She organized informal gatherings where humans and Vryn could interact without the pressure of official talks. At one such event, she introduced Ryan to Kael'vor's second-in-command, a soft-spoken warrior named Silnar. The two exchanged stories of their respective careers, finding common ground in their shared dedication to protecting their people. By the end of the evening, Ryan realized he had gained not just an ally, but a friend. Despite these positive developments, challenges remained. Some factions within humanity continued to resist peace, spreading propaganda that portrayed the Vryn as untrustworthy aggressors. Carson's arrest had silenced one voice, but others quickly rose to fill the void. On the Vryn side, skeptics questioned whether humanity could truly change its ways, or if this was merely a temporary truce. Both Ryan and Kael'vor worked tirelessly to counter these narratives, using every tool at their disposal to promote unity and understanding. One evening, as the SS Horizon drifted through the vast emptiness of space, Ryan found himself reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the lives lost in past wars, the sacrifices made by soldiers like himself, and the countless opportunities squandered because of fear and pride. Then he thought about the present, the tentative alliances, the fragile bonds forming between species, and finally, the future. What kind of galaxy did he want to leave behind? Laura joined him on the observation deck, her presence comforting. "You look deep in thought," she said with a smile. "I was thinking about how far we've come," Ryan replied. "And how much farther we have to go." Laura nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It won't be easy. There will be setbacks, misunderstandings, maybe even more attempts to sabotage peace. But if we keep moving forward, no matter how slow, we'll get there." Ryan smiled faintly. "That's quite a leap of faith." "It has to be," Laura said firmly, "because without faith, there's nothing." Her words stayed with Ryan long after their conversation ended. Faith wasn't something he had relied on much in his life. He preferred action, tangible results, and measurable progress. But Laura was right. Peace required belief, not just in others, but in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Weeks turned into months, and the joint patrols proved successful. Incidents along the border decreased significantly, thanks in part to improved communication and mutual respect. Ryan and Kale Vor became symbols of cooperation, their partnership inspiring others to follow suit. Though tensions occasionally flared, they were resolved through dialogue rather than violence, a testament to the progress being made. Eventually, Central Command and the Vrin leadership drafted a formal treaty outlining guidelines for coexistence and collaboration. It wasn't perfect, no agreement ever was, but it represented a monumental step forward. When the document was signed aboard Epsilon 7, surrounded by representatives from both species, Ryan felt a surge of pride. This moment, forged through struggle and sacrifice, was proof that humanity and the Vrin could rise above their differences. As the ceremony concluded, Ryan stepped outside, gazing up at the stars. Laura joined him once more, her smile warm and genuine. "We did it," she said quietly. "Not yet," Ryan corrected. "This is just the beginning." Laura laughed softly. "Of course, always looking ahead." Ryan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but for the first time in years he felt hopeful. Humanity and the Vrin had taken their first steps toward a shared future, imperfect and uncertain though it might be. And as long as there were people willing to fight for peace, Ryan knew anything was possible.